Frank DeMora here. Today is March 30th, 2020. This is where I connect the dots between Bible prophecy and current events. It's no longer a joke, people. The signs that Jesus told us to look for in that special generation are here. And at my YouTube channel and both at my sites, as you see right here with the End Times Research Ministry, and also when you go over to my BibleProphecyMan.com ministry there, you'll see you can download my book today for free. You'll see the link there, and it's all free. I've never charged anybody for anything I've done for the Lord, and I never will. But now it's so important that people understand what's happening and how it's connected to Bible prophecy. And this is what I want to cover today. Something very, very important. It's related to the COVID-19 virus. But what I'm going to be showing you has to do with the economy side of it and what was written many years ago, what I put in my book, by the way, and I'll show you where it is in my book, so that you'll understand the things that I said were going to happen in the future were based on the word of the Lord, and I knew what was going to happen, and it's already happened. So I'm going to be showing you that information. Now, to start with, if we're talking about a world economy, and Jesus talking about one man will control that world economy, we need to read Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 through 17. And I am sure that there's been a lot of people who are quoting Revelation 13, verses 16 through 17, especially in the last month, when we see that this world of ours that we live in is falling apart. Our economies globally are beginning to get the strain like we have never seen before. Jesus said, starting in verse 16, and he, who is the he, first of all? The Antichrist. This is who Jesus is talking about here. And he causes all, both small and great, rich or poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, say he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So before it's all over, what the Lord is revealing to us is that a man is coming. He is a literal man. He's not some symbolic gesture. We know that from the scriptures in many different places where the Lord refers to him as he and so forth. And in this particular case, the he is the Antichrist. He's going to be able to have the reign of a global economy. In other words, a reset. Now, I'm going to be quoting from a source that I picked up, and it's the information that you need to understand. And so the abbreviation, when you hear it, you'll know what it means. The abbreviation for GEAB by LEAP. This is Global Europe Anticipation Bulletin. There is a group of people, very learned people, who anticipate what's going to happen in the future, and they write about it. There's also LEAP 2020. Of course, we're in 2020, but this stands for Laboratory European and Political Anticipation, or LEAP. It is a think tank established to analyze and anticipate global economic developments from a European perspective. So when you see the abbreviations for the GEAB or the LEAP 2020, you'll know what that means. There won't be any question. So in my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, I've been picking up articles over the year, and you'll find those articles in my book. You'll see one of the articles that I picked up had to do with this section that I'm going to be reading from. And you can get all this information, by the way, in my book. It's there. This was from 2009, and this is where you can get it. And I'm going to put the link at my website so that you can go over and read what I'm showing you today. Global Systematic Crisis, fourth quarter 2009, beginning phase of global geopolitical dislocation. So back in 2009, this group of people from LEAP 2020 was saying what to look for, what was going to happen with the world economy, and why. Now, before you go any further, let me just say this. They missed the mark on the year 2009. However, what they were saying in the article, as you're going to be seeing, it was right on the mark, but it's for a different date. And now, living through what we're living through, we can actually see we're very, very close to what they were really talking about. So I'm going to read this for you because I think it's really important, then break it down for you. Due to the global leaders' incapacity to fully recognize the scope of an ongoing crisis made obvious by their determination to cure the consequences rather than the causes of this crisis, the global system crisis will enter a fifth phase in the fourth quarter of 2009, a phase of global geopolitical dislocation. Back in February 2006, Leap E 2020 estimated that the global symptomatic crisis would unfold in four main structural phases: trigger, acceleration, impact, and dissenting phases. This process enabled us to properly anticipate events until now. However, our team has now come to the conclusion that due to the global leaders' incapacity to fully realize the scope of the ongoing crisis made obvious by their determination to cure the consequences rather than the causes of this crisis, the global systematic crisis will enter a fifth phase in the fourth quarter of 2009, a phase of global geopolitical dislocation. So I know it sounds redundant, but I'm reading it just as it's coming off this article. According to Leap E 2020, this new stage of crisis will be sharpened by two major processes happening in the two parallel sequences. Two major processes. Number one, disappearance of the financial base, dollar and debt all over the world. And aren't we starting to see that right now with this global problem because of the virus? Number two, a fragmentation of the interest of the global system's big players and blocks. Two parallel sequences. Number one, quick disintegration of the current international system altogether. And right now, with all the cities around the world being locked down and people not going to work, we're starting to see that as well. Number two, strategic dislocation of big global players. We had hoped that the dissenting phase would give the world's leaders the opportunity to draw the proper conclusions from the collapse of the global system prevailing since World War II. Alas, at this stage, it is no longer possible to be optimistic in this regard. In the United States, as in Europe, China, and Japan, leaders persist in reacting as if the global system has only fallen victim to some temporary breakdown, merely requiring loads of fuel, liquidities, and other ingredients, rate drops, repurchase of toxic assets, bailouts of semi-bankrupt industries to reboot it. In fact, and this is what Leap E 2020 means ever since February 2006, using the expression global systematic crisis. The global system is simply out of order. A new one needs to be built instead of striving to save what can no longer be saved. In other words, what they're telling you is a new system has to come, and that system will come out of chaos. And essentially, we know this is going to happen in the near future because this is what the Lord revealed to us, that one man will control everything because obviously some kind of chaos ensued to propel him to the center stage. History is not known to be patient. Therefore, the fifth phase of the crisis will ignite this required process of reconstruction, but in a harsh manner, by means of a complete dislocation of the present system. In other words, it's going to fall apart with particularly tragic consequences in the case of several big global players, as described in the 32nd issue of the GAAP. According to Leap E 2020, there is only one very small launch window left to prevent this scenario from shaping up. The next 4 months before summer of 2009, and remember I said that they missed the date, but the rest of this information is pretty spot on what's going to happen. Particularly speaking, the April 2009 20 summit, probably the last chance to put on the right track the forces at play, i.e., before the sequence of UK and then US defaults begin, failing which they will lose their capacity to control events. Number 3, including those in their own countries, for many of them, and the world will enter this phase in a geopolitical dislocation like a drunken boat. At the end of this phase of geopolitical dislocation, the world will look more like Europe in 1913 rather than the world in 2017. Now, what are they talking about? 1913? This was before the Great Depression. So things were going okay, and then August the 29th, as most people know now, through March of 1933 is when it came to a conclusion. So it was a time before the Great Depression hit, and they were making similarities to the 2009 problem, the global problem, with these banks falling apart because of all the loans that they were giving out that were just ridiculous, the way they were putting these loans together. So let's go on. Because they persisted in bearing the ever-increasing weight of the ongoing crisis, most states, including the most powerful ones, failed to realize that they were planning their own trampling under the weight of history, forgetting that they were merely man-made organizations only surviving because they matched the interest of a large majority. In this 32nd edition of the GEAB, LEAP E 2020 has chosen to anticipate the fallout of this phase of geopolitical dislocation so far as it affects the United States, EU, China, and Russia. Now, this is really where it gets very interesting. It is high time for the general population and geopolitical players to get ready to face very hard times during which whole segments of our societies will be modified. In other words, there's a huge change coming for a lot of people around the world. Temporarily disappear or even permanently vanish. In other words, there would be no recovery from this major reset. For instance, the breakdown of the global monetary system we anticipated for the summer of 2009 will indeed entail the collapse of the US dollar and all USD denominated assets. But it will also induce, out of psychological contagion, a general loss of confidence in, now get this, paper money altogether. These consequences give rise to a number of recommendations in this issue of the GEAB. So, supposedly what they thought was going to happen because of the economy collapse in 2008, they thought that the dollar wouldn't bounce back. But now, in hindsight, we know that it did. And back in 2009, when it started, it was one of those huge birth pangs that Jesus refers to about the last days. And so we can expect that in 2009, when it was bad, as we get closer to Jesus Christ, it was going to get that much worse. And for sure, that's what's happening globally at this present time. Last but not least, our team now estimates that the most monolithic, the most imperialistic political entities, 5, will suffer the most from the 5th phase of the crisis. Some states will indeed experience a strategic dislocation, undermining their territorial integrity and their influence worldwide. As a consequence, other states will suddenly lose their protected situations and be thrust into regional chaos. Now, most of you probably heard about how the people who really want a one-world government will use chaos to their advantage. Let me just show you one of many reports about this. This is from the Washington Times. It came out March the 28th of 2020. COVID-19, a crisis fit for a new world order. Look what it says here. If crisis is a means by which Democrats achieve their political ends, and it is, Just think of the other famous never let a crisis go to waste playbook. Then imagine what coronavirus means to the globalists. So the bottom line is this: the LEAP people, this think tank, who saw what was going to happen in 2009, although they got the year wrong of when it was going to happen, we see it more clearly now than in 2009 because we're in the midst of the worst possible scenario that our generation has ever witnessed before. The virus has taken down the global economy, and no one can say for sure how long it'll be before we get on track, or if we even get on track. If this virus isn't contained and the world economy continues to go in the direction that it is currently going, you could expect a collapse to take place. Then the world leaders who are trying to prop up a one world system, we know it's going to happen because Jesus warned about it. And everything that Jesus has warned about always comes to pass, and that's why we're seeing the footsteps that are leading to this one world order and eventually the mark of the beast. Now, the question remains at this point: will it propel us into chaos now, or is this another one of those major birth pangs that Christ warned about? At this point, I can't tell you. I'm just like everyone else who is waiting to see what happens in the future. But I do know this: whether it's curtailed now like it was in 2009 or not, the steps are being forged for the mark of the beast and the setup of this one world government, which now they're trying to go to a different currency. They're working towards a digital currency that is alluded to in this article, but in many, many places now. You just do a Google search about the central bank going digital. It's all over the place now. So there is worry about the collapse of the dollar, and if the dollar collapses, you know what will happen. It's going to be a domino effect all over the place, and we'll never get out of it if that's the case. So whether you're a Democrat or Republican, a liberal, whatever you are, you better be praying for Donald Trump right now to correct this situation. Because if it's not corrected right now, you will be facing the Antichrist a lot sooner than you think. Because it's a setup for the one world government. And not only the one world government, but also the one world religion that has already been setting the footsteps up for that through the Pope in Rome, as he's unifying all the different religions around the world under one umbrella, which was a prophecy in the book of Revelation as well. Now, somebody sent me an article from the NTEB about the mark of the beast that's coming. The headline to this report: Bill Gates is quite confident that he can leverage the coronavirus to make every person on earth receive a vaccination with a digital ID. I'm not going to go through the entire article. I'll leave the link at my website. You could read all that information there. But what I want to make sure that you completely understand is that it sounds like in this article that they're talking about this mark of the beast being issued within a year or so. And just let me rest assured in your hearts, people, when this will happen. When is the mark of the beast actually going to take place? Is it a year and a half? Absolutely not. The setup for it is coming, but the actual ordering of that mark of the beast in the right hand or in the forehead is going to be by the Antichrist, and we know exactly when that is, as I said in my video yesterday. So if you missed that video, watch this. You cannot change the word of the Lord. There are certain things that have to take place, and I don't care what anybody tells you, that we're going to have the mark of the beast in April or May or June. It's not going to happen. And we know that for sure based on Daniel 9:27, where the Lord reveals to us the following: and he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. The he is the Antichrist. This Antichrist man is going to come out on the scene when there's absolute chaos around the world and there's going to be a reset of the economy. He is going to make a covenant with many between who? Well, he's going to be making between Israel and the Islamic nations. When is this going to happen? At the very beginning of the 7-year tribulation that will start right here. And let's read the rest of the scripture and I'll bring it all together for you. In the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. In other words, in the middle of the 7 years, or 3.5 years, or 42 months, this Antichrist is going to walk into the temple that will be rebuilt, by the way, that has not been built yet. It's not underground. It's going to be built on the Temple Mount. The construction to hold up the temple is currently being constructed underneath the Temple Mount. But the actual temple is not being built underground like so many people are trying to make you believe, to try to force you to believe that the temple's already here. That means the Antichrist is here. It hasn't happened yet. Now, a lot of people who don't know prophecy might say, well, it says a week. Well, you have to know what the Bible is referring to. It's a heptad. You see it right here. And it's a series or group of 7. And in this particular case, it's a period of 7 years, 1 week. And so we know this for sure because he talks about 3.5 years or 42 months. And that is not 1 week. It's a longer period of time. It's a heptad. So the Jews have to sacrifice, killing of the animals for atonement of their sins. That has not happened yet. Why? Because the temple's not there. The confirmation of the covenant hasn't even begun yet. Now, if it, say for example, it started today, March the 30th, 2020, right here, it would be national, international news. It would be everywhere that there was a covenant that was agreed to between Israel and the Palestinians, who've been fighting constantly with no progress of peace. But when the Antichrist comes, he'll make a covenant. That will be the beginning of it, 3.5 years. That's when the Antichrist goes in. So if the covenant were to be issued on March 30th, and I say if, I don't want anybody saying, yeah, Frank DeMorris said the covenant was March 30th of 2020. I'm not saying that at all. I'm giving you an illustration. So, but if it did, you can count on your calendar 42 months or 3.5 years, and right in the last day, Antichrist goes in, and that is when the Antichrist tells everybody to take the mark of the beast. Not through a virus chip. This mark is a very, very specific mark, and it will be ordered to you to take it in your right hand and in your forehead. And it will be ordered that you do this, not to get a virus protection and to register people who have the virus, but it's a matter of allegiance to the Antichrist. Completely different from what people are telling you about the vaccination that they're saying is coming, that will be placed in your hand to track you and to track what kind of virus protection you have in your body. So don't let people confuse you. The author of confusion, according to the Bible, is Satan, and he's doing a lot of that in these last days, and he's causing fear in many, many people that people shouldn't be going through. And the only reason why people are going through this type of fear is because they do not know what the Bible has to say. They do not know the prophecies that Jesus Christ said to watch for. That's why I'm here, and there's other people like me who are teaching you sound doctrine, leading you on that narrow road, making sure that you stay on that narrow road and never be deceived. Because one of the first things that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24, when he gave a list of all the last days signs, was do not be deceived. Now, as far as the disease goes, I was looking on the internet today. It's going rapidly. It's affecting many, many people around the world. 741,030. And as of today, 35,114. And they haven't stopped it yet. And now, President Donald Trump has put out another edict that you need to stay confined until the end of April, which probably is a good move to try to stifle the spreading of this disease, because if it's not stopped, the chaos will come, the New World Order will come a lot quicker than most people think. And along with that, the New World Religion and the Mark of the Beast. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that you understand the connection between Bible prophecy and current events. Jesus wants no one to perish. And that's why he has people like myself and others who are preaching his word. We are his watchers. In a way, we are the shepherds trying to bring in the fold to make sure that no one does any harm to them, deceiving them, giving them wrong information, and trying to pull them out of the Lord's flock. Everything, at least in my ministry that I give to you, I back it up with proof and evidence that the word of the Lord, as stated in the Bible, which I quote, is being fulfilled in our generation. The generation who saw the rebirth of the nation of Israel, just like prophesied in Matthew chapter 24. God bless you all. Please keep safe. This is Frank Camorra.